Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Lee Whitson, the new Executive Director for Democracy for the Arab World Now. I thank you all for joining us today in this live broadcast. Before I start my remarks, I just want to make a few housekeeping notes and to let you all know that this is being recorded and it will be available on demand on Zoom and by request, as well as available on our Facebook site at dawnmina.org. We will have an opportunity for participants to ask questions and answers, and further instructions on how to do that will follow our remarks. Before I welcome you all and tell you a little bit about our organization, I wanted to invite you to watch this short film that I hope gives you a good flavor of what's in store at Dawn. Thank you. Ready for the video.
Over the past decade, tens of millions of people in the Middle East and North Africa have risen up against corrupt and autocratic regimes, demanding freedom, rights, and democratic reforms. But the ruling elites, threatened with the loss of their unchecked powers, have reacted with the repressive tools they have honed over decades. Many leaders of these uprisings have become casualties, jailed, or exiled. But the demands for democracy and human rights persist, deepen, and expand. As a leading Saudi journalist, Jamal Khashoggi championed the quest for democracy and freedom. For this, he was forced to flee his country. In early 2018, Khashoggi and colleagues who share his values established Dawn, Democracy for the Arab World Now, an organization devoted to championing rights and democracy in the region, not for tomorrow, but for today. Democracy now. In October 2018, the Saudi government murdered Jamal, fearful of the influence his calls for freedom would have. Dawn honors the legacy of Jamal Khashoggi by continuing his work, demanding human rights in the Arab world and justice for the victims of the region's tyrants. We investigate and document abusive arrests, trials, and detentions, providing a resource for comprehensive information on some of the most significant prosecutions. Unmask the servile bureaucrats who carry out and enable the abuse and oppression of their fellow citizens. Expose the complicity of foreign governments and businesses in enabling the abuses of oppressive regimes. We measure the performance of the international community in supporting or undermining democracy and rights in the region. We call it the Khashoggi Index. We advocate for accountability, reform, and the rule of law in the region and abroad, and build a platform for democracy exiles from the region and experts to share their analysis of the Middle East and North Africa, engage in dialogue and a debate to better understand the complex challenges of the region, and propose a vision for a rights-respecting future. Dawn, Democracy for the Arab World Now. Join us at dawnmina.org.
Thank you. Almost exactly 2 years ago, I received a call from Khadija Cengiz. She was standing outside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. And neither of us knew that the worst was about to unfold, and that our friend, that Khadija's fiance, had already been murdered by the time she contacted me, when I asked her to wait in vain for Jamal to emerge. Jamal was my friend for over 15 years. We met ironically at the Saudi embassy in Washington, where he was a spokesperson for the Saudi government and serving as an advisor to then Ambassador Prince Turki Al Faisal, whom he thought was his friend. In November 2016, after writing an article critical of President-elect Trump, Mohammed bin Salman banned Jamal from writing and from appearing on television. I spoke with Jamal about his situation and I encouraged him to leave. It seemed that repression was only getting worse as Mohammed bin Salman ascended. Less than a year after the ban, Jamal made the painful decision to leave Saudi Arabia. He was very attached to his homeland, but most of all, he mourned leaving his grandchildren behind, showing me their pictures on his phone. Jamal subsequently explained his decision to the world. He said, "I've left my home, my family, and my job, and I'm raising my voice. To do otherwise would betray those who languish in prison. I can speak when so many cannot." In the summer of 2018, Jamal founded DAWN, Democracy for the Arab World Now, along with some of his friends here in the room today, based on his belief that only democracy and freedom will bring lasting peace and security to the Middle East and North Africa. Mohammed bin Salman and his Tiger Squad murdered him just a few months later, and DAWN sadly remained mostly dormant since that time. Here is Jamal's business card from when he was able to be DAWN's executive director. I'm proud and honored to take on his role as executive director at DAWN and to happily and formally launch the organization, because we are going to uphold Jamal's legacy. Our vision for DAWN is to create a hybrid organization that combines features of a human rights organization with research and advocacy, and a think tank with analysis, and also a publishing platform with news, articles, and opinion pieces. We seek to supplement the excellent work of rights organizations, think tanks, news outposts focused on the Middle East and North Africa by adding unique content that fills the vacuums that we believe need filling. My colleague Abdallah Al-Ode, who is Director of Research for the Gulf, will describe to you our human rights research and advocacy that we hope will focus in particular a spotlight on the mid-level culprits, the senior government officials, the prosecutors, the judges, the prison wardens, who assist and enable the abuse of authoritarian governments. My colleague Fadwa Masat, our Arabic media director, will discuss our signature opinion and news platform, what we're calling Democracy in Exile, that will provide a space for Arab political exiles and experts on the region to discuss and explore different ideas and voices for the future of the region. Jamal was perhaps the Arab world's most famous political exile, whom Saudi Arabia tried to silence. We will give a voice to thousands like him who struggled for change in their countries. Our inaugural non-resident fellows include 15 top Middle East scholars from some of the most prestigious academic institutions in the world. We are honored that they are joining our mission. We aim to make a unique contribution to analyzing the specific role of foreign actors, including governments, businesses, and institutions, in promoting or undermining rights and democracy in the region. We aim to challenge the narrative that's floating around still to this day in Washington of the United States as a benign actor that's tried so hard to promote democracy in the region. We plan to create the Khashoggi Index, which was a dream of Jamal's, that we hope will measure for the first time the extent to which foreign governments actually support or undermine democracy and the rights in the region. We'll also continue our efforts to seek justice and accountability for Jamal's murder. Watch this space to see exactly how we plan to make the Saudi Arabian culprits involved in his murder face the consequences for their crimes right here in the United States. A little bit about our organization. We are a nonprofit organization supported by donations from friends of Jamal's and foundations. We have taken no government funding. We currently have a staff of 10 people and are very eager to grow. So if you like what you hear, check out our website and please donate to DAWN as soon as you can. I want to just make a few remarks now to introduce a senator who is kindly supporting our work. Senator Chris Coons is the kind of person and senator who gives you hope in the government and the future of our country. He is a voice of reason in the Senate, and he is one of the few congresspeople who actually get things done, leading recent Senate efforts to pass bills addressing, of course, the opioid epidemic and to expand access to higher education across the country. More importantly, for our purpose, Senator Coons serves on key Senate committees, including the Foreign Relations, Appropriations, and Judiciary Committee, which is keeping him busy for the next couple of weeks, and sadly too busy to join our event today. But as co-founder and leader of the Senate Human Rights Caucus, Senator Coons is particularly interested in the issues that Dawn focuses on, human rights and the rule of law. He has led efforts in the Senate to force this administration to publicly reveal those responsible for Jamal Khashoggi's killing. And for that, we are tremendously grateful for his advocacy. I want to share Senator Coons' remarks with you this morning.
Hi, I'm U.S. Senator Chris Coons from Delaware. I'd like to offer my congratulations to Sarah Lee Whitson, to Michael Eisner, and to everybody involved in today's launch of DAWN, the organization known as Democracy for the Arab World Now, which was part of Jamal Khashoggi's dream, his hopes for the region, dreams that were brutally cut short by his murder 2 years ago. As a co-founder of the Senate Human Rights Caucus and a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I have worked tirelessly to try to bring to account those most responsible for Khashoggi's murder and to push for a thorough re-examination of the U.S.-Saudi relationship. Let me simply say this to you today. I greatly appreciate your launching this organization to help hold accountable the United States government, all of us in government, and in particular the Trump administration, for the ways in which it has put human rights on its back foot and put economic and military interests first. As you well know, in the long run, in the Middle East and North Africa, United States relationships in the region and our interests are best served by putting democracy and human rights first. That's not where we are yet, and with your advocacy and engagement, that's where we will someday be. Thank you for your passion and for all that you're doing. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you to Senator Coons for those remarks. And with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Abdallah Al-Odeh, our Director for Research in the Gulf, to share with you some more information about our research. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah Lee. Hello, everyone. My name is Abdallah Al-Odeh. I'm the Director of Research for the Gulf at Democracy for the Arab World Now. As some of you know, I'm a scholar by training. Most recently, I was the visiting professor at George Washington University at the School of Eliot, at the Eliot School of International Affairs. I'm also the son of leading scholar Sheikh Salman Al-Odeh, who is now in prison in Saudi Arabia and who is facing the death penalty because of his many years of reform advocacy. And in this talk, we're going to shed light on what we do at DAWN and the research that we are doing. We detail research and document work of the abuses and abusive behaviors and violations, human rights violations in Saudi Arabia and in the Arab world generally. But we started with 3 countries, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Egypt. But we also want to expand. But we start with these countries because they are aligned with the US and they get the support and the military aid from the US. So we think as a US-based organization to focus and to start with these countries in order to achieve more and to have more influence. We do an encyclopedic review of selected detainees and cases that highlight the extent to which due process fails, and there is not even a semblance of justice in these countries. Other organizations may cover the arrest, an event of violation, one-time hearing at a trial, but what we do is a continuous coverage, a very detailed documentation of the case from A to Z, and we do that from various sources inside and outside, and we depend heavily on those inside and the voices from within to get the right documentation and the right facts. We also publish never published documentations, informations. We publish court memos. We publish legal documents as well that can shed the light on these cases and other cases in the region. We also hope to provide a source for journalists, for writers, researchers, academics, historians to provide the most thorough documentation of particular cases of detentions that we cover. We will cover a cross-section of cases, not just detainees and prisoners of conscience, but also royals, businessmen, businesswomen. We cover the cross-section of detainees and cross-section of those who are the victims of human rights violations, regardless of their activism or background. But what we believe we have the most innovative and important contribution is what we call our culprits gallery. Our culprits gallery is basically a gallery of individuals who are involved in human rights violations in these countries that we cover. The people who commit these and contribute and were part of the systematic abuse of power, the systematic abusive behavior and violations of human rights. And when we talk about culprits, we talk about a wide range of individuals, starting from the people who operate on the ground to arrest people at the request of the state security forces. We're talking about the prison wardens. We're talking about interrogators. We cover people like, and then we start with the trials, covering the prosecutors, the judges, all those who are involved in the prosecution. And then we cover those who provide justification in the media and in the social media to provide justification for these abuse. And when we cover the culprits, we hope to put the spotlight on those. On these bad actors, to make them uncomfortable to travel, uncomfortable to have to be received with the red carpet in the US and elsewhere. We want to expose them to the world, to the media. We want to show the world what they are and what they have done, so they can know in advance what they are receiving and who they are receiving, and the abuses that they were involved in. And much of this research on these bad actors comes from resources from within, from people who were involved in the cases, people who documented it on the ground and talked to us most of the time anonymously in order to protect their identity. And when we cover the culprits, we also hope to be the basis for legal actions against these bad actors. And we have the example of our friend Mohammed Sultan, the director of Freedom Initiative, who filed a lawsuit against Hazm Biblawi, one of the bad actors in Saudi Arabia, and whose case was based on Human Rights Watch report. we hope at Dawn to provide documentation and detailed information about the abuses, so we can be the basis for any future legal actions against these bad acts. And finally, we again starting with these countries, but we would love to expand, and we are determined to expand to other countries in the region. We also work not only to expose the extent to which foreign governments, including the US, are complicit in these abuses, but also to work to bring the recommendations, analysis, insights, and to bring the political exiles from the Arab world to be part of this. Because the message here is that if you killed Jamal Khashoggi, then because he decided to be exiled here to have free speech and to criticize the governments and to call for democracy, well, guess what? There are thousands of voices around the world that can be part of this and can be a source for uncomfortable, to bring the uncomfortable truth to the dictators and autocrats in the region. And therefore, we have the Democracy in Exile section. With this, I conclude, and I thank you all for coming to this event.
Thank you, Abdullah. I now want to invite Fadwa Masad, our Arabic Media Director, to speak about our new publishing platform, Democracy in Exile. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Hi, everybody. My name is Fadwa Masad. Some of you know me. I am Dawn's Arabic Media Director. Many of you know me as from my past role as Managing Editor of Maghreb Voices and Managing Editor of MBN Digital, and as my many years working as investigative reporter. I'd like to tell you more about our new platform, Democracy in Exile, and why we think it will be a unique and important space for discussion about a new vision of the future of the Arab world, and a new vision we all so desperately need. Jamal was himself an exile and very much wanted to create a space where he could harness the energy of democracy exiles to pressure Arab governments and push for democracy and rights. We now have unprecedented numbers of democracy exiles from the region, millions of Arabs who have been forced to flee the region since the uprising of 2011 from various countries, and now present in so many countries of the world, in Turkey, in Lebanon, in Greece, in UK, in Germany, in Sweden, Canada, the US, and Australia. Many of these exiles are in desperate need of support. They are cut off from their homes, have sacrificed everything, and have little assets. They face depression, anxiety, survival's guilt, and we aim to partner with the Arab Diaspora Initiative to develop a support system and a support community for them. Our own contribution will be to create an institutional home, a platform for publishing where we will solicit their contribution for a new vision for the region. We call it Democracy in Exile. Our goal is to re-engage these political exiles in discussions and debates and share their experience and insights, and providing independent, honest analysis that is near impossible to get from the region. We need their contribution. We need to focus on a vision for hope and believe that there are alternatives to the oppressive governments now ruling the region. We also need to support them because they deserve our support and should be encouraged to stay connected. They will share this space and with experts we've identified and are invited to become non-resident fellows. They're prominently academics who are leading commentators on the region and share basic value of Dawn in support of democracy and human rights at the best. We will also seek our other experts in the field to publish their views, analysis, and commentary in Dawn's space. We hope you will read and review the first contributors to our inaugural launch issue. We believe they will be a good representation of the diverse views and insights we hope to share with you in our publication. Our goal is to broadly define contributions that they include creative works, artistic contribution, music, photography, and we want it to be a lively space that reflects the complexity and richness of the region. I would like to share with you what a female exile told me when I asked her to write for Democracy in Exile platform. She sent me a message and she said, "Thank you, Dawn, for providing me with a safe space where I can scream, I can express myself, and I can share my story without it being distorted by anyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell young activists in the region that their struggle is not in vain, that dictators we will make sure that dictators will not have the last word and that we will not be silenced. Change will come." And that was her message, and we hope that many other exiles will find the Democracy in Exile platform as a safe space to share their own experience with other exiles that will be joining us later. And with this, I would like to open the mic up to take questions from the room. We will take 2 questions from the room, then we will move to questions from the Zoom meeting. Any questions? And Sarah will be here to take questions and answer. Thank you all.
Are there any questions in the room before we turn to the Zoom audience? Great. We'll ask our moderator to take questions and instruct you on how you can ask questions.
To ask a question, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom. The first question comes from
You're muted, 2020.
Sarah, were you able to hear that?
No, could you repeat that, please?
Sure. The question is from Kareem Fahim. And the question is, what can you say about Jamal's original vision of Dawn? And from where does the current organization receive its funding?
Sure. The original vision of Dawn that Jamal Khashoggi and our board members helped create was really based on the fundamental premise that democracy and human rights are the only solution for the Middle East that will give it stability, security, and dignity for its peoples. His vision was to create an organization that would advocate for that basic principle and that would advocate not only to an audience in the Arab world, but to an audience of foreign governments to, in some cases, have lost that clear understanding of what the region needs. Unfortunately, Jamal had not been able to develop a detailed program and plan for the organization because the Saudi government murdered him. And so the board really took up his dream and his goal to try to move the organization forward, and that's what we've been very focused on doing since his murder. And then that I would actually like to particularly thank my board members, because it's really thanks to them that we are able to keep Jamal's vision alive as part of Dawn. So thank you in the room. All of the funding for Dawn comes from individuals who are friends of Jamal here in the United States, as well as a foundation who is supporting our work, also based in the United States. We don't take any government funding, although I'm sure the army of flies and trolls are already out there insisting that our funding comes from Qatar or Iran or Israel or you name it. But in fact, all of our funding comes from private individuals and foundations.
Great. The next question is, please repeat the 3 questions that you are focusing on and what other countries you will focus on moving forward. And this is from Beatrice at FA.
I'm not sure I heard the question in terms of the 3 questions we're focusing on or the 3 areas we're focusing on.
Let me repeat that. I apologize, I apparently cut out. The 3 countries that Dawn is focusing on right now, just reiterate those, and also which countries moving forward you may work on.
Right. Well, at the outset, let me make clear that Dawn's work intends and hopes very much to cover all of the Middle East and North Africa. And that is through our publishing platform, Democracy in Exile, where we are publishing viewpoints, articles, expert analysis that covers all of the Arab countries of the region, as well as the index that we hope to be working on in the coming year, the Khashoggi Index, that will examine the role of foreign governments and assess the extent to which they are hindering or helping democracy and rights in each country of the Middle East and North Africa. So our intention and our goal is very much to cover all of the countries of the region. Our research at this initial stage, our strategic priority for the research that our organization, that our staff is doing at this initial stage, is focused on Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates. And the reason we've made that strategic choice and ethical choice is because these 3 governments are the ones that are most closely aligned to the United States and the current administration. These are the 3 governments that are receiving the most support and assistance, military assistance in particular, from the United States. And as an American organization, we feel that that's where our greatest responsibility lies, because that's where we as voters, as taxpayers, have a responsibility. And that is, of course, at least if our democracy works correctly, is where we should have the most impact in terms of influencing our own government's role and responsibility for what it's doing to hinder democracy and rights through these governments.
The next question is, how can interested writers and editors work with Dawn to help its mission?
Well, everyone can work and help Dawn by donating to Dawn and visiting our website, dawnmina.org. Again, we are a nonprofit organization and we will depend on contributions, small and large, to our organization's work so that we can keep working. In addition, Democracy in Exile as a publishing platform will solicit and welcome unsolicited contributions to our publication. Of course, our editors will select those that we feel have the most value to add and the freshest viewpoints to offer. But you can email us at info@dawnmina.org.
Taylor from the Christian Science Monitor asks, how will Dawn's Culprit Gallery work to highlight the acts of mid-level officials deemed quote unquote bad actors complicit in human rights abuses? Will it advocate for US action to freeze assets of such officials?
Well, two-part question. In terms of the culprits that we are identifying in our culprits gallery, and we start by identifying a couple prominent notorious culprits today, we are doing this based on our research of the particular role these judges, these prosecutors, these prison wardens have played in the specific cases and prosecutions that we ourselves have documented. And so it is very much a fact-based assessment that their role in these prosecutions has been grotesquely abusive. And we want to ensure that these individuals who otherwise get to hide behind the shadow of their dictator bosses in their home countries get the attention that they also deserve for their role. And that their friends and families and associates, as well as the international audience, know exactly who they are and exactly what they're responsible for. I think what you'll find in many human rights organizations is a tremendous focus on the victims of people like these. We want to also make sure that these bad actors get a lot of attention too. And I think you'll find them prominently featured on our website. In terms of what we'll advocate with respect to these culprits, certainly our advocacy will be global, not just about the United States. And we're not just targeting governments with respect to how they treat these individuals, but civil society organizations, other organizations and entities to deprive them of the perks and prestige that their titles of judge and chief prosecutor otherwise gives them by exposing the bad acts that they're responsible for, and hopefully having the international community, those who grant visas, those who invite them to speak at conferences, those who lavish them with little jaunts to training sessions or tours of the US Supreme Court, even to think twice before giving them that honor and that prestige. Certainly in terms of sanctions, we believe these are individuals who deserve to be sanctioned by governments that sanction human rights abusers. But we are also very concerned and very insistent on seeing such sanctions applied in a consistent and even-handed, non-politicized way. Unfortunately, the vast majority of US sanctions currently applied are done in a highly politicized way.
The next question is, which countries in the MENA region does DAWN include in its mandate, and which does it not include?
We include all of the countries in the Middle East and North Africa in our mandate. At this point, we have not yet determined whether that will include, for example, Iran, since our focus is very much on the Arab world, but certainly given that even Iran has a sizable Arab population, arguably it can and should be included. But that is work that we will be developing.
Next question, how do you see the current US policy on human rights toward the region, toward friends and foes? How are you planning to change and improve that?
Well, first of all, I invite you to check out our website, which includes our principles for foreign policy, our principles for US policy in the Middle East and North Africa. I think it's very important to explain that we are very troubled by US policy in the Middle East and North Africa because it is in fact not guided by human rights or democracy promotion, notwithstanding the fact that many people in Washington seem to still believe that US policy is guided by principles of democracy and human rights. We very keenly want to show a spotlight on the exact ways in which the US government, first and foremost, because it is our government and we are an American organization, are in fact undermining human rights in the region and undermining democracy efforts in the region, specifically by aiding and abetting abusive governments, unelected, unrepresentative governments, governments that rely on American military assistance and American military sales, but also, as importantly, on the diplomatic cover that the United States provides these abusive governments, these leaders, going so far, of course, as to call them our favorite dictator in the case of Sisi. And by seeking to expose the extent to which the United States is undermining democracy and rights in the region, we, as an American organization, are going to demand that the United States stop, that the United States stop doing harm to the peoples of the Arab world, that the United States stop undermining popular efforts at democracy, that the United States stop supporting tyrants that are quashing their own citizens, jailing, torturing, terrorizing, abusing not only their own citizens, but peoples they occupy, like the peoples of Palestine, and peoples they're bombarding, like the peoples of Libya and Yemen. Sadly, it's a long list of horrors in the Middle East that the United States is playing a very bad hand in. And we want the United States to stop this because it means that the United States is itself contributing to human rights abuses. I want to be very clear that we're not asking for the US to use its leverage with these tyrants, because we're not convinced that this kind of leverage actually works. And we are not convinced that these tyrants have any interest in reform. We want the United States to stop committing human rights abuses and to supporting governments that commit human rights abuses. It's a very simple proposition: do no harm.
Great. On a related note, next question is, could you elaborate on the tools you will be developing to advocate and press for hopefully improving the state of democracy in the region?
Sure. I think we'll be relying on a variety of techniques, which perhaps reflects our own fundamental faith in the people of the region and in the power of facts and truth. This includes providing a comprehensive, detailed, complete record of what the prosecutions of certain cases, example cases in the region look like, that we hope are going to be a tool to researchers, analysts, and policymakers. We hope to be publishing, as I was just discussing, a culprits gallery, which will expose the role of servile bureaucrats in allowing their dictators to dictate and terrorize in their countries. We will advocate with our own government and governments around the world to stop supporting abusive governments in the region. We will advocate with businesses. We will advocate with mayors. We will advocate with all those who are complicit in the abuses in the region. And we're very proud to be a part of a strong coalition of groups led by the Freedom Initiative that is pushing for governments to boycott the G20, that has successfully pushed a number of mayors, including just most recently the mayor of Paris, as well as the mayors of Los Angeles and New York, to boycott the U20 going on in Saudi Arabia virtually and really painfully on the anniversary of Jamal's murder. And very significantly, we hope to establish an institutional platform for democracy exiles from the region, the people who have sacrificed a great deal for their struggle for democracy and rights, and to make clear to the international community that they are the independent civil society that we are all so desperately seeking. Our brothers and sisters in Egypt may not be able to speak freely, but Egyptian political exiles can. Those are the voices we need to be listening to about what we want for the region, the future we want for the region. Our brothers and sisters in Saudi Arabia cannot speak freely. The UAE is so insistent on silencing its own citizens that it's made it a crime to criticize MBZ's recent deal with Israel and the United States, because that's really what it was, a deal. We want political exiles who are the only independent civil society voices still standing to be heard and to be listened to about their vision for what they want for their countries.
Great, we've got a few more questions. Jackie Northam at NPR asks, has there been any response to your organization by Saudi, Egypt, or UAE?
Well, certainly my message inbox has been replete with very warm and supportive messages from Egyptians and Saudis and even Emiratis congratulating us on this venture and wishing us luck. I haven't heard official government response from the unelected, illegitimate leaders of these countries, but I'm sure that they will be making all kinds of fanciful and false accusations through their troll bots fairly soon.
We have a question from Sarah Dill. Why is Qatar not included in your core group? They are extremely close to US government, including military operations, and given the upcoming FIFA World Cup and extensive human rights violations and corruption associated with that.
Well, first of all, we hope very much that Qatar will be included in our work. As I was mentioning initially, in our Democracy in Exile platform, we will welcome contributions about Qatar. In our Khashoggi Index, we will very closely examine the role of foreign governments in promoting or undermining democracy and human rights in the region. Our own research at this time, the research of a very, very tiny staff of researchers, is focusing on 3 countries because of the extremely grave abuses in their country of jailing activists, and that is the focus of our work. Those who are being prosecuted, jailed, and sentenced inside their countries because of their political opinions, or in grossly unfair trials that we hope to expose. Qatar, Kuwait, Oman do not have quite the atrocious record of Saudi, Egypt, and the UAE, but certainly with your support and your donations, we will expand our research team to include additional countries whose abuses and prosecutions we will also investigate and document.
We have a question from a person at the Brooklyn Institute for Social Research asking if there will be efforts to disseminate the research of Dawn Fellows to the public.
Absolutely. What I am very excited about is the contributions of our fellows. I urge you to check out our website and see some of the prominent, honorable, and very clear-eyed analysts, experts on the region who have affiliated with Dawn. We feature some of their contributions in our inaugural launch today, in our inaugural launch of Democracy in Exile. So please read the contributions from Dalia Fahmy, Imad Shaheen, just to name a few. And we will certainly be seeking to promote their work, their books, their talks, their articles, because their vision mirrors ours, and that is a fundamental belief in democracy and human rights and freedom for the people of the Arab world.
And we are down to our last question. It comes from Sunji Berry with Freedom Forward. How can people in the US and other nations amplify Dawn's work and stand in solidarity with advocates for freedom in Egypt, Saudi, and UAE?
Well, I suggest that you actually visit Sanjeev Berry's Freedom Forward website, which is a leading platform for advocacy on human rights in the region, and leading the G20 and U20 campaign that I was just mentioning. I think I might have said Freedom Initiative, which is also another excellent organization whose advocacy is focused primarily on Egypt. We are working in coalition with these excellent organizations, and of course they can support the work of Dawn. I think we've described what I hope will be our unique contributions that will supplement the work of Freedom Initiative and Freedom Forward and all of the other excellent human rights organizations who we consider our allies and our friends.
That concludes the Q&A. If anyone else has questions, they can send those to press@dawnmena.org. Thanks, everyone.